I'm Callie Seckler.
And I'm Tara Merrick.
This is Worth the Watch. Today's film is Glass Onion.
We'll be rating the plot, characters, sound, visuals, and originality of the film. Each category earns a popcorn bucket.
Or not. First up is plot.
It was definitely really interesting. It was really exciting. I was excited throughout the whole thing. I was having fun. I really enjoyed how it moved along, and then how they revealed the different, I don't know if I could call them subplots, but the different parts of the stories.
It completely added, and we'll talk about this more in originality, but it completely added to the metaphor of the glass onion, peeling back layers. We're getting told a story, then we're getting it told a different way, then we're finding out more information, and it's just like piecing it together. That really brings in the murder mystery, aspect of the whole film.
Absolutely. So it was definitely a bit tropey. There were lots of tropes going on. I mean, it's a murder mystery. It's really hard to avoid.
Yeah.
But stuff like the twin dying and then her twin sister replacing her, pretending to be her, that sort of stuff you see everywhere in media.
I loved what they did with the detective's character. We immediately laughed because the first thing that you see of him is him playing Among Us and him being very bad at it. And just that, he disses Clue at one point, saying that he's really awful about it. It's just stuff like that ties into it. And then there's this part where the whole reason that they're invited to the place is to partake in a murder mystery thing that Edward Norton's character sets up for them. And it's just the happiness and joy of the detective immediately solving exactly what is supposed to happen. It was almost gimmicky, but I loved what they did with that. They just really shows that he loves the detective.
We'll discuss him more in characters, but we really, really enjoyed how they handled him in this movie as opposed to the first one, Knives Out. Also, this is just a small thing that maybe they didn't intend. Maybe they just wanted the Among Us to be like a sort of throwback to 2020. But it was also a nice bit of kind of foreshadowing in a way, because then they were literally put into this island where there's someone among them hunting down and killing people.
Sure.
Which, I don't know, I thought that was a little funny. Maybe it's overanalyzing, but I thought that was really fun.
It was a good way to bring humor into a murder mystery movie. Because instead of just laughing at the characters or the plot, there's not much to laugh about there.
Yeah, they did really well balancing the fun with the murder mystery tension with just everything going on. So we're going to give it the bucket. As for characters, there were definitely some good parts and definitely some bad parts.
Yeah, I had a lot of issues with the new characters in this movie. The only one that really stuck out to me was Edward Norton's character, and I'm pretty sure it's just because it was played by Edward Norton and I like him. But other than that, these characters were basically all of the same. They didn't even have goals. Their one goal was to continue manipulating and using this rich, powerful man for his power and his money. It didn't feel like they were friends. That was what they were trying to do, I think, form this weird friendship with all these people, but they were the exact same. They all just cared about their reputations. They were just exact tropes, copy and pasted, of famous people that we all hate, rich famous people, just in different things. They had the politician and the Twitch streamer. Those could have been interesting characters if they were given personal motivations. There was absolutely no personal motivations in this. It was just boring to watch almost.
They were very monotonous. They all had the same motivations, and they weren't as intrinsic in the plot as going back to Knives Out, how
Not
each
to
character,
compare too much, but
yeah, how each character was so important, and each of their motivations shaped the story. And they had different motivations compared to this one, where you could insert any rich famous person trope or any rich famous person that we know in real life into these character slots, and it would still work.
With the first one, those characters they were all selfish, plain and blank. They were all selfish and wanted their own things out of the situation. But if you look deeper into it, they were all their own character. They all had different motivations. The movie took the time to explain that and to learn about that, which is one of the pivotal things that made that such a good movie. You were so interested in these characters because they were so different but similar to each other, the way that a family truly is. So it was just such a difference going into this movie when you see there was not even any arcs with the characters other than at the end Benoit calls him out, Edward Norton's character, for being stupid. That's what he says. He's like, yeah, you're a rich genius, but at the same time, you're not. And they don't even spend any time on that storyline. These characters stay the same throughout the whole movie and show no emotion about any changes happening when their friends supposedly are dying in front of them.
And they're all static characters, and like I said, that makes it very monotonous. But one of the things we did like about this, though, in terms of characters, was how they sort of fleshed out the main detective, Benoit Blanc, a bit more than they did in this last movie, in Knives Out, where his intro was just him being like this mysterious figure.
Background character that like played the piano, and like the whole time you're like, why is he there? And yeah, they took that into this movie too, but it was more fun.
It was a lot more. It was more fun. It was a bit more fleshed out. He's less of this mysterious stoic figure, and he's more this like fun guy. Like you see him at home. His introduction is, instead of him being all mysterious and dark, he's sitting in the bathtub wearing a fun hat with like books spewed everywhere, and he's playing Among Us with a bunch of famous figures on like Zoom. And that's so fun. And he has like, he's living with like this man and who's a baker apparently, who answers the door. Like it's fun to see a little bit of his home life.
When he's on with the home life, but when he's on the island, one of my favorite parts was the whole reason they went there was because Edward Norton's character invited them to solve a murder mystery. And the first thing that he does at the dinner table is solve the entire thing in less than a minute. And I just thought that was amazing because you see his excitement, you see this real character that is truly just, he's a detective because he enjoys the danger, he enjoys the mystery, and he enjoys finding things out. And it was just lovely for his character. Obviously we knew that in the first one, we knew he took his work seriously and was very involved in it, but you truly see that he is just a fun guy who is bad at Among Us and Clue.
Yeah, so we loved Benoit Blanc in this film, but we are not going to give it the bucket for characters. And then next up is sound, which wasn't exactly impressive per se. They made some good choices. The music that was original for this film was kind of reminiscent of the first Knives Out, but it was also
used in a completely different way.
Yeah, it was less of a suspense builder throughout the whole film and more of just kind of there. Like I didn't really take much notice of it. I didn't specifically think, oh, that was cool there. It was just there.
Yeah, and their use of, when they went into flashbacks, like the normal score for this movie and the first one is like orchestrated music, you know, the first one's very dramatic, the second one's a little more low-key, but in like the flashback scenes when they start playing David Bowie in the background and then they play David Bowie again, a different song later in the movie, it's just like those choices that they made of not having an actual score and using real songs. It might come from the fact that the Beatles song Glass Onion is played. He even plays a Beatles song at the beginning, I think, on the guitar. But it wasn't necessarily the wrong choice for this movie. It was just nothing special in my opinion, but we still liked it.
Yeah, we definitely liked the addition of the David Bowie songs, the Beatles songs.
I loved the David Bowie songs.
Yeah, and it definitely added like another element of fun, how this movie was a lot more like forward,
almost
like
fun.
Yeah, it was bizarre. It was bizarre fun as opposed to the first movie, which was just bizarre. Well, fun, but it was mostly bizarre. But so we're gonna give it the bucket because we liked that addition. And then next up is visuals, which there were definitely some pieces that we liked and some pieces that we didn't like. We really liked the costuming specifically.
Oh, I absolutely loved the costuming. Yes. It just felt so, I don't know, the only thing I can remember right now is Kate Hudson in the beautiful dress that she's wearing. And of course it becomes a part of the plot where they're all like, hey, look at her as something else happens. It was just beautiful looking.
And we liked how the costuming definitely did point towards their careers that these characters had, except for Benoit Blanc, who's just wearing these like fun little clothes, which sort of contributes to...
I actually loved his outfits
I know, I think it was
the
so
last
fun.
movie he wore those suits, you know, he was more of that detective type character. This time, since he was invited on vacation to an island, he's just wearing like, obviously nice clothing, but it's just like
it's
the
fun.
funny clothing.
Yeah,
it was fun to see it.
It's very fun. His little necktie, very reminiscent of Fred from Scooby-Doo. And he played sort of a more funny detective character. Yeah, sort of like that. So it was very fun. And then we liked how like the model was always wearing these like very beautiful, like sort of ornate outfits, like her orange swimsuit that had like all the ruffles and extra straps and stuff. And then her rainbow dress that was like all shimmery with the matching eyeshadow and that sort of thing. And then how like the scientists were very like practical official outfits and just that sort of thing. It definitely contributed to these characters. And while the characters were shallow, like we said, it added a little bit to them. And then also the lighting was another part that we really enjoyed in this film.
Pretty. Yes.
Yeah. And And we really liked how they like sort of sparsely used specifically really cool lighting. I'm specifically thinking of this scene where the main villain of the movie is sort of leaning into a table, leaning on a table while another character is standing behind him, and he leans into shadow, and
He's
you can't see his
completely in the
face.
dark. You can't even see his face at all. All you see is the detective behind him. I loved that scene. There's other scene when she finds out the main twin, Helen, she finds the envelope that was stolen from her, and all you see is her walking towards the camera and these obnoxiously bright orange and purple lights from a sign that was hanging on the rich guy's
Green and
wall.
purple, yeah,
Green and
from
purple.
the Glass
Yeah,
Onion.
from the Glass Onion restaurant that they got the whole idea for. She just slowly walks into that bright colored light, and I just thought it was a very fun addition. Something that we, or at least I specifically disliked, is if you're gonna call this a sequel, which it's called Knives Out, Glass Onion, there were just certain things that I felt could have been done to turn it into a Knives Out movie. If you're watching the first one, and not to compare too much, but there are specific things done in the first movie that not only made it a great movie, but just told the story better. There were very specific pans throughout the entire movie. There's very quick shot scenes that just, again, really add to the first one being a good movie. So if you're going to call this a sequel, call it another movie in this series, obviously you need to have a different plot, but I feel like there was stuff like that was extremely underutilized. Yes, it happened sometimes. We saw the pan sometimes. We saw that camera work that, just to me, is just very specific to the first one. But it was just very underutilized, and it's something like that. If you're gonna call it a sequel to try and to get the Knives Out name in the title, people remember the old movie. You're turning into a new movie. It's just stuff like that at least I would have really appreciated and really would have made the movie for me. And I just felt it lacked almost completely in anything similar to that.
And I did enjoy the details that went into the set itself. Like obviously it was in Greece, it was beautiful, and then it had that sort of billionaire, like sort of clean, like minimalist vibe to the house. And he also had those random paintings like on his walls.
Like the Mona Lisa.
Yeah, and there were some small details in that I did like, and then also one specific detail I enjoyed was how he had this abstract painting that was partially blue, partially red, and he had it hung on his wall, except the painting itself was upside down. He had it upside down, and it's like, it's not as obvious as it would be with like the Mona Lisa if you hung the Mona Lisa upside down, but since it's an abstract painting, but it was there, and it sort of added to how this man is an idiot.
Yeah, I'm gonna counter to what you're saying just a little bit. Something I didn't like about the design of it was in the main room that a lot of things happen. I believe the dining room's in there, and the little living room that they sit in for a little bit is in there. And all throughout the room, they have these statues with glass figures on them. I just felt it was there obviously to build up to the end. They throw them on the ground, they smash the whole thing. I personally felt like they just did that to try to look cool. I didn't think it looked that interesting. Everybody has seen glass smash a few times, and I feel did nothing for her character to be going around smashing all this rich people glass. She herself is, or no, she's not a rich person because she's the twin, but I don't know, it just felt off to me, and I did like the design of the camera work going behind it, but I felt it was just, they had an empty room and was like, what can we put in it? What do rich people have? Oh, big glass structures. I disliked that part.
I sort of disagree there. I liked that, and I liked the build-up that it provided.
Okay. We will agree to disagree.
But we're gonna, overall, for the visuals, we're gonna give it the bucket. And then the final bucket is originality, which we thought it was pretty original. We specifically
obviously, it's a
really
murder
liked.
mystery.
Yeah, it was a murder mystery, so it was very tropey, like we said before. But we thought specifically in terms of the metaphor, the extended metaphor of the glass onion throughout, and the way that the story sort of, it peeled away, it revealed its layers. You knew the end, you knew the center of the glass onion, but its layers sort of peeled away as they showed you how Helen came to be dressed up like Andy and that sort of thing, and how Andy was killed and that sort of thing, with how that correlated with the peeling away, the layers of the onion, and then also how the glass onion metaphor was so important to all factors of this movie, even to where they played glass onion at the end of the movie by the Beatles.
Yeah, I overall thought this movie was, again, as original as you can make a murder mystery. It was a little bit predictable with the fact that, yeah, the rich guy was the guy that killed Andy at the beginning of the movie before we see. I did like that the whole time it was convincing you that it was other characters. It was to the point where you almost did think, hey, maybe other characters did this, but I liked it overall.
And then, again, this might be overanalyzing, but the way, I like to overanalyze. The way that there were a lot of red herrings throughout the entire film.
It adds to the glass onion.
Yeah, with like Daryl being like, who is Daryl? He was just
Who
there
is
for
Daryl?
no reason.
Who is Daryl?
But it sort of,
I loved Daryl.
it was a bit of a throwback to, like I said, the Beatles song. The song was specifically written.
It was specifically written, John Lennon specifically wrote it to confuse people who overanalyze the Beatles songs. He disliked that people did that, and specifically wrote, the line that comes to my mind is he wrote like, the walrus was Paul, because he just wanted to mess with people and make it crazy, which like, I wish could have transferred over more. If it was really like named after that, I wish it could have transferred over more.
It was such a, it was full of red herrings, and then it was sort of transferred over in that the movie had a bunch of red herrings. Like there was obviously Daryl, but there were a lot of more subtle red herrings. And then also, what, like you said, how the movie was trying to make you think it was other characters, those were red herrings. But I liked how the glass onion metaphor was everything in that movie. It was sort of touched on everything.
And then it exploded at the end.
Yeah.
It was just a good overall to the story of now the glass onion's just gone.
So we're gonna give it the bucket for originality. So overall, it earned itself 4 out of 5 buckets, making it
Worth the watch.